We all know that having a gun in your home increases the risk of death. There's numerous studies that show that. The more guns there are, the more gun deaths there are. It's simple math, right? So conservatives and Second Amendment activists would love to argue that when it comes to suicide, that getting guns out of the home doesn't make a difference. For the most part, they'll just find another way to do it, right? This is pretty much known as the inevitability argument. Hey, they're going to do it anyway. Well, not so much. According to a new study co-authored by economist Alex Tabarrok. I hope I'm saying his name right.
Right.
Now, here's a little twisty twist on this story. Alex Tabarrok teaches economics at George Mason University. That is a libertarian economic department. And he's one of the lead authors of Marginal Revolution. So this guy's not a liberal. Nobody's liberal. All right. But he did the math. Along with co-author Justin Briggs, they decided to put together a lot of data on gun ownership and suicide. So what did they find? Well, in the paper, they write, we find strong positive effects of gun prevalence on suicide. A 1% increase in the household gun ownership rate leads to a 0.5 to 0.9% increase in suicides. So now, getting back to the first question of, would most people just find another way to kill themselves? Surprisingly, not as often as you would think. According to Tabarrok and Briggs, when gun ownership decreases, we see a big decrease in gun suicide and a substantial but less than fully compensating increase in non-gun suicide. So in the end, there's actually a net decrease in the number of suicides. What do you think so far?
I actually totally agree with this study, and
It makes sense.
It makes sense, and if there's more, I'd like to hear more before I get into it.
There is more. And actually, this comes from a columnist at Bloomberg by the name of Megan McArdle. Now, she's a strong Second Amendment proponent and libertarian columnist as well. So she notes that far from being a well thought out plan, suicide is often an impulsive decision rather than a rational choice to end one's life. Now, in one study, she backs this up by taking a look at a group of people who were prevented from jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. They found that the majority didn't attempt suicide again. Rather, they made one terrible decision and survived. When you have a gun in the home and you want to commit suicide, it's really easy. And it's a bad decision that when you're in a rational state of mind, you don't normally make that decision.
Well, I mean, the reason I'm not disputing this study is because, one, it's numbers, but the reason I'm not disputing the conclusions of the study is because it just makes sense. Most people who attempt suicide are probably only going to attempt it once, right? The chances are. And if you attempt to shoot yourself in the head, you'll probably be successful. But if you attempt to use pills, like pills, if you swallow pills, like I could just imagine you're sitting there waiting for them to kill you. Like you're gonna probably call an ambulance, get your stomach pumped.
Yeah, that sucks.
So for the people who are just gonna try it once, and it sounds dumb the way I'm saying it, but the people who are just gonna attempt suicide once and then get help afterwards, having a less effective way of killing yourself like increases the chance you're going to survive. Like if you don't have a gun, if somebody's like determined to kill themselves, they're going to kill themselves, right? Like this is the most full attempters. Like even if they fail, they'll keep going. That's
really determined. It's hard to stop.
But for the people who it's in a moment of passion, would I rather them take pills and then think about it for however long it takes the pills to go, or get a rope together or whatever? I feel like I'm giving people ideas, but like a gun is instant. So yeah, if you didn't have a gun in the house, it's logical that you're less likely to commit suicide because that first or successfully commit suicide because that first attempt is is super effective.
Right.
Which again, I'm using like child words for it, so I apologize for sounding insensitive.
But it does make sense though, and you know, that's why I brought this study up because it is running the numbers, and it makes a lot of sense. Now,
It
there's
makes
one
it
little
makes it
caveat to the
logical.
study. Let me get to that. It's just that according to Tabrock, the data on gun ownership isn't complete. So he couldn't run as many of the numbers as he would like. He didn't because he couldn't get all the information. And he had said the results in the paper appear to be robust, but the data on gun ownership is frustratingly sparse due to political considerations. Basically, it's the NRA and some gun manufacturer or gun groups preventing data from this
Yeah,
from
there's no
running.
national there isn't a national registry, which I tend to agree with, but
Well, I also agree with that.
it's a sample, like it's a small sample, but like even if it was national, I don't think that the what you call it, I don't think the results would be very different.
Right, and that's why he says this is robust data, but you know it would be more accurate if we had more of the numbers,
Yeah,
and so he's just saying that as a little bit of a caveat. It really doesn't change anything, but I thought it was just I had to mention it. One more thing, of course, is
sure.
that the writers of the study, the co-authors of the study, say that look, they wanted to make sure that they said, look, this isn't advocating for gun control, and they wanted to make that clear because look, they're very strong supporters of the Second Amendment, which is fine. But what I really liked about what McCardle wrote in her article, she said, and I love this: responsible gun ownership means taking care that your guns are not used to harm innocent people. And if you know that your emotional history puts you at risk of taking your own life, then you should start by protecting yourself. She also wrote, and I agree with her again fully on this. This is an excellent point. People people who have had major depressive episodes in the past might be well advised to avoid gun ownership or put their guns in the care of a trusted friend. And folks who have recently gone through a horrible life event, and she gives some examples, losing their job, bad breakup, or the death of a loved one, would be well advised to get the guns out of the house until they have recovered from the blow. Now that is the most common sense, sensible thing that I could read.
I mean, I remember I was watching a movie. This is a random anecdotal story about this guy. He was a big gun advocate, but for 20 years he didn't have a gun in the house, and that was the 20 years that his kids lived in the house. And he said, and he would say, and he was interviewed in the movie, and he's totally Second Amendment. Like he would be in the Gun Owners of America, which is the group that's like harder than or further right is the terminology you would use than the NRA.
Right.
But he said, look, he's like, I don't want my kids getting into my guns. Like, to me, that's a responsible gun owner.
That is absolutely a responsible gun owner.
Right. But as far as the overall point, like, of whether this actually is a good study to indicate advocating for gun control, like,
No, it's not.
they
It's
say
not a
they're
good.
not.
No. What
Well,
what it is that it's a good study on to prove the that people should be more responsible. It really advocates personal responsibility. And look, I'm a liberal progressive, and I definitely agree that when it comes to weapons, you should take more personal responsibility. And to me, that includes making sure that if you have somebody in the house that has mental illness or you have mental illness yourself, that maybe you shouldn't have a gun in the home.
right. And then the thing is it's not it's logical. Like people who try to deny this like study, it just makes technical sense. If you're going to kill yourself and you have a more effective means in your house, that like I mean, what are the percentages of people not dying from when they shoot themselves in the head? I mean, it's like
Right.
it's I'm sure it's like close to 100%. Like I know there's exemptions and all that. Then
Yeah.
then you're more likely to successfully kill yourself. That makes sense. Now, I personally don't think that's an argument because for gun control, because I don't think that the government has a duty to protect you from yourself, even in unfortunate situations like suicide. But like it's good to know, like it's information, and this is coming
Yeah.
from libertarians who are like further than most Republicans on gun issues, that they want you to be able to have access to more weapons. But they're saying, look, it's good to know, and if you have these problems, you probably shouldn't have a gun in the house because there could be a time when you're not in sound mind and sound judgment, and you might take your own life. As far as it's just good information to have. It's and it and I know that you're more likely to be like shot in a house that already has a gun, but to
Yeah,
me that's common sense. Like it's like saying you
and you know, McArdle in her article, she said, well, look, that's the trade-off.
right.
That's
But
really
it's
the trade-off for having a gun in the home.
but it's common sense. You're more likely to be shot in a house with a gun in it, just like you're more likely to drown in a house with a pool in it. It's like I hate when people deny like logical things. Like of course that's true. But like but there are other studies like that suggest that hot burglaries are lower in states with more gun ownership, which means that people are less likely to break into your house when guns are more permitted because they're when you're home, because they're afraid if you're home that they might get shot, so they're more likely to break into your house when they think you're not home.
And of
So there
course, you
are
could come up with other studies as well
oh
that
yeah
show that in places where there is less poverty and people aren't as poor, and there are, you know, programs to help the poor, that you don't have a lot of robberies in the first place.
right. Well, I'm just saying that but that's also you could also argue that
Yeah,
that's one type of crime that you're preventing. So like it's my point is there's lots of numbers out there. It just depends on what you use them for. And to me, these are just numbers that are like they're being used to tell you something. It's not being used to advocate a position. So like the
right,
people
and
who are
that's
gonna
why
reject them are ridiculous.
I really brought up the story is to educate people on this issue. You are more likely to die with a gun in the home from suicide.
Right.
That's just the numbers. That's just what it's telling you. So I think really the important thing that I want to let you guys remember is that if you're feeling depressed or feel like you want to end your life, get the guns out of your home.
And talk to somebody.
Yeah, call somebody. Get some help. Because if you don't, you're a danger to yourself. And you might be a danger to other people.
Right.
So you just, you know, that's what we're getting into here. We're not calling to take away your guns.
I'm definitely
Certainly,
not.
Sean, totally against that. I'm against that. I do believe in the Second Amendment. I believe they're background checks, but that's a whole different debate. But if you're a danger to yourself, then you shouldn't have a gun in the home because you're more likely to kill yourself or hurt someone else.
Right.
So if you're feeling like that, let a neighbor, let a friend take care of your guns, let a family member take care of your guns, or do what that really responsible gun owners did and,
Yeah.
you know,
Like keep
store his guns somewhere else while there are people in the home that are more at risk.
right.
It is it is what you said it comes down to. It comes down to common sense.
Right.
So just
And
do
being
yourself
cautious.
do
What
common sense.
is it? Like your guns are there. Your guns are there so that you prepare for the worst. But right, like the reason
What
people say they
happens
have
when
the
you become your own worst
yeah.
enemy?
So you also got to prepare for the worst case scenario of something going wrong with your guns. It's just logical, and it should be if you call yourself a Second Amendment advocate and an advocate of personal responsibility, it should be on the top of your list of things to do is making sure that they're secure without anybody having to tell you. But we're still telling you.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. Please leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and share with your friends. If you want to see more, go to our channel at youtube.com/TYTNation. And if you really want to support the show, support this channel, go to our fundraising campaign at www.patreon.com/TYTNation. The website is in the description below. Thank you guys, and keep watching.